ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who, The Three Doctors, the first story from Doctor Who Season 10, and the 10th anniversary story, even though, as I mentioned at the end of the Time Monster review, that it's actually all starting back in December 72, December 72 into January 73. So whilst it is partially in the 10th anniversary year, the Time Warrior from December 73 to January 74 is closer. It might even have been better if they just had a 10th anniversary special around the time, but oh well. But this story does feel very much like a 10th anniversary story, so we'll just say that. I mean, maybe they were going to do it for the season finale, but with Katie Manning leaving, they decided to make a story for her. Jo's departure, as opposed to having a 10th anniversary special. Plus the fact that they would want the Doctor to get back into space, travelling in space and time again for this season, and they had a good way to have that at the end of this story, with the Time Lords forgiving the Doctor after he saved them. So the plot of The Three Doctors is that the Time Lords are experiencing problems and a black hole in space is sucking out all their energy. Meanwhile, on Earth, antimatter has arrived and the Doctor has discovered it's been transporting things, and it goes to this black hole. So the Doctor has to try and get in contact with the Time Lords, and they send the second Doctor to help the third Doctor due to their loss of power. However, when the two Doctors don't get on, the first Doctor is then sent to help. However, he gets stuck. He gets a bit stuck, and can only advise and provide some help. And he provides contact with them, as well as also gets in contact with the Time Lords about it. Some stuff in Part 3 and Part 4. So the second and third Doctors eventually have to travel to the black hole along with Jo, Benton, the Brigadier, and two other guys who accidentally get brought along for the ride, a scientist and a Mr. Ollis, who is a warden, the nature reserve warden, I suppose. Maybe his role was supposed to be filled by the first Doctor, but when William Hartnell was seen to be not so well, and so they had his Doctor be just an advisory character and sit in his little area reading off from autocubes. So, and the scene where he's in the garden, it seems to be a common thing that in anniversary stories the first Doctor is hanging out in a garden, and this as we see him doing this in the Five Doctors. If Dave the Doctor had been a 11, 12, 13 Doctor special all the way through, as opposed to just the Saving Gallifrey scene, I wouldn't be surprised if the first Doctor was hanging out in a garden. Not so much Twice Upon a Time, because that's supposed to be taking place right after 10th Planet, the events of the 10th Planet, but before the regeneration. And Time Nirani, he's plucked out. Not Time Nirani, Dimensions in Time, he's plucked out of time. But definitely in the Five Doctors, he's also in a garden, just hanging around. The second Doctor in this story seems to be in some sort of, I don't know where he is. There's a lot of smoke, so maybe he's in a battlefield or on a volcanic planet. He's on his own somehow, for some reason. No Jamie. And it's after the invasion for him. Maybe it's during the War Games. I'm not actually sure. The same thing happens in the Five Doctors. The Doctor seems to be hanging out just after the events of the War Games. There is this so-called Series 6B, which has events between the War Games and the regeneration of the second Doctor, more adventures. I'm not sure. Maybe these two stories could fit into that, but I'm not quite sure. It's like having all the events of Trial of the Time Lord at different points of the Sixth Doctor's life, which does make a bit more sense. And there's a very good video about the Sixth Doctor's timeline done by my friend Matt Moyer, done on the Universals. Go check that out. The Sixth Doctor timeline. So that actually makes a bit more sense. So he's going to have a bit of a job to do if he does the second Doctor, including Series 6B, Season 6B. Series 6B is basically Series 6 Part 2. Anyway, in the black hole, they arrive in a world of antimatter, and they meet Omega, one of the founders of Gallifrey, along with, later on, we also discovered that Rassilon was a co-founder with him, and Omega is a stellar manipulator, which means he engineers a star engineer, and he volunteered, it was his job basically, to go into the black hole and blow it up to give I think it was the black hole, it might be the sun, to provide a supernova so that Time Lords can be given the power to time travel. However, he was sacrificed into a world of antimatter through a black hole. And of course, Rassilon would develop the Time Lord Society. I don't know if I think he's probably mentioned a few times before Five Doctors, but maybe there's a bit more about the legend of Rassilon around Five Doctors' time. I think maybe it's introduced. Certainly, elements are introduced in Deadly Assassin, which I believe is besides a cameo in Genesis of the Daleks and the Master's next appearance. That's it for the Time Lords. I think it's just and a guy from Planet of Spiders. So we only got the one more Master appearance, and with Roger Delgado, and a Time Lord in Planet of Spiders, and a Time Lord popping up in Genesis of the Daleks, and then the next time we'll see the Time Lords as a species, which will be the following time we see the Master with Peter Pratt. Yep, Peter Pratt will be Deadly Assassin in season 14. So, as the Time Lords as a species, that's the next time we'll be seeing the Time Lords. We'll just be seeing some individuals beforehand, excluding the Doctor, of course. So, Omega is, because he's trapped, and he's been trapped here for ages, millennia. He's multiple millenniums. He wants to escape, but he can't escape without destroying his world, and it's his will that's holding the world in place. But if he tries to leave, then it crashes down and it would destroy him. So he needs another Time Lord to keep it in balance, and that's why he's come for the Doctor. However, the Doctors do find a way to get Omega out, but in a fit of rage, Omega destroys this device and closes up the black hole with the Doctor and Doctors and Unit and company able to escape. So that's the plot of the three Doctors, plus the third Doctor is redeemed at the end of the story, and his knowledge of time travel is given back, and a new dematerialization circuit is provided. And it's also the second Doctor's recorder plays an important part in the defeat of Omega in the end of Part 4, and there's actually quite a few funny scenes where the second Doctor is complaining about his recorder. And you know what? It's super, super fun seeing Patrick Troughton back in the role. I know Jon Pertwee's the current Doctor at the time, but it's super fun seeing Patrick Troughton back, having so many great scenes, especially when he's on his own. And he had some great moments, and when the two are together, that's where it really gets fun. And and Troughton's also really great when he's asking for his recorder. He does look slightly older, not as much as he would in the two Doctors. Even five Doctors to two Doctors, he actually ages quite a bit more. But he does an amazing job here, and Jon Pertwee also continues to do an amazing job as the Doctor, and William Hartnell also does a great final job as the first Doctor. He doesn't get much to do, but considering his health at the time, it's just as well. And he does have some great moments where he appears and helps out. It would have been nice to have him a bit more in the action, but like I said, considering he had health problems at the time, it was probably not a good idea, and it's probably a good thing that they went down the Autocube route. That was probably their plan from the start, so maybe Mr. Ollis was created to fill that maybe originally planned gap, that because the first Doctor wouldn't be in the action, maybe he and the other scientist guy would also join in to have a bit of fun alongside the second and third Doctors, Joe, Benton and the Brigadier. No Mike in this story, by the way. Mike's not in this story. We get this other Unit guy who's on the outside and sees Unit disappear, but that's about it. Unit as a whole doesn't do a huge amount in this story, apart from the Brigadier and Benton, but they still do a pretty good job, and it's nice to see Unit headquarters start as the labs taken away piece by piece, but then the whole building goes. That was fun. I will say some of the effects aren't quite as good. That antimatter thing does look a bit hokey and very very dated. Some of Omega's lifting of his head. It looks great that they made the actor look invisible when they get the Doctor and the Doctor's in the background at the mirror. However, when he's with there is some little effects noticeable when you got the eye and mouth sockets. So you could tell that they've removed it via effects. However, the practical effects look really good, and it's also the visual effects on how parts of the buildings are disappear. It is handled really well. Just have a few nitpicks with some of the problems, but they can't be helped that badly. If I had one complaint, it's those the gel globes. I'm not sure, but it's these creatures that come after the unit soldiers in part 2. I think they come to attack end of part 1, start of part 2, and when the Doctor and company go to the planets, they're the servants of Omega, and I suppose they are creatures of antimatter, but I don't know. I mean, the design doesn't look that great. I mean, they look like pieces of bubbles on them and with big giant claws. And somehow they're able to blow up stuff somehow. I mean, maybe it's just energy. Maybe it's Omega's will. But he's able to will up these gel globes creatures. Is that the best you could do, Omega? And this antimatter creature that goes down to the planet, it goes down to Earth. So, yeah, those are my only complaints. They're not quite as executed really well. And also, TV mistake here. Bessie's wheels have already got a bit of quarry dust on them before the Doctor and Joe even drive it. So either they've done the take of driving already, or they've had to the driving it in would cause it to be dirty. But yeah, TV mistake. Get a couple of them in both new and classic Who. But on the whole, The Three Doctors is a really fun, really enjoyable, and really entertaining story. I think it may have worked better as a 100-minute TV special. 97 minutes it says here, so maybe shortened with the titles removed for parts 1, 2 and 3's credits, and 2, 3 and 4's titles when 4's a little bit extended. Maybe have its own special title sequence. But yeah, maybe it would have worked better as the 10th anniversary special, as a 95-minute special, but unfortunately it wasn't. Instead, it became the first 4-part story of the first of 2 4-part stories of the season and the season opener, and it's still a really good, really fun, really entertaining story. Got some great stuff in it, and all the Doctors do great jobs. I think the actors do a great job. I think Stephen Thorne is once again a bit too loud in some scenes, but I do like his enthusiasm for the role. I think despite him being a bit too loud, he is really great at performing these shouty characters he has to do, such as Azal and Eldrad, as well as Omega, of course. So The Three Doctors, really fun, really entertaining, and has lots of great moments. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Yeah, only a few problems. I'm not really worried about these Gel Globes characters, and some of the effects look dated, even though some of them also look really good. And there's also a short bit that could have been cut of the Professor trying to escape, but eventually being caught. Yeah, if this had to be a 90-minute short, that would definitely be a scene I would have cut. So not 90-minute short, 90-minute special like 5 Doctors instead of 95 or 96. Then that would be a scene I would have cut, as I mentioned. But on the whole, The Three Doctors, great story, really great way to kickstart season 10, and a great way to celebrate the 10th anniversary about 10 to 11 months too early. Whoops. Oh well, I mean, you get the party started as opposed to having to wait all year for it. Well. Anyway, that's The Three Doctors. Season 10 continues to be great with another fun 4-part story, Carnivore of Monsters. And whilst I don't think the story is as great as Three Doctors, I do find it a lot of fun. So, next up, Carnivore of Monsters. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my Doctor Who Season 10 Story 1, The Three Doctors review. I'm starting this review again. Oh, one more thing before we go. Three Doctors. The sonic screwdriver does make its... Oh no, I'm not going to do that. Whoops. I'll do that for the next review.